Imagine London during the Blitz. The city is a maze of shadows and ruins, constantly shaking from explosions. For most people, it was a living nightmare, just praying to survive until morning. But for a select, sinister few, the air raids were an answered prayer. Because for them, the chaos of war wasn't a tragedy, it was the perfect alibi.
We always think of the Blitz as this epic battle between nations, right? But for some, it was a very private, very brutal war being fought down on the streets. And that brings up a terrifying question. What if the deadliest thing in the Blitz wasn't actually falling from the sky, but was standing right next to you in the dark? You see, for a certain kind of predator, the Blitz didn't create a city full of victims. It created a hunter's paradise. All the normal rules of society? Gone. The environment itself became a weapon. And here's the chilling irony. That citywide blackout order, the one meant to save the city from bombers, it plunged London into absolute, total darkness. So the very thing designed to save lives provided the perfect cover for taking them. With zero visibility, the usual deterrence, people seeing you, they just vanished overnight. This kind of environment creates a really unique and terrifying mindset. I mean, when death is literally falling from the sky every single night, it can completely desensitize someone who's already wired the wrong way. The government couldn't protect anyone, and that seems to have given these predators a kind of god complex. In a city full of victims, they became the ones dealing out death on their own terms. And think about the noise. The constant drone of planes, the thunder of anti-aircraft guns, the crash of buildings. A scream for help? It was just another sound in this symphony of destruction. The city's own defense system became the killer's unwitting accomplice, completely masking their crimes. The Blitz basically handed murderers a complete toolkit. You had total darkness as the perfect cloak. Cries for help were swallowed by the sirens. The police? Well, detectives who should have been hunting for clues were busy digging through rubble for survivors. Entire districts became these ghost zones where law and order just evaporated. A killer, covered in dust and maybe even blood, could just walk away, looking like any other rescue worker or traumatized victim. Okay, so you've committed the crime. Now, how do you get away with it? You let the war do the rest. The Luftwaffe provided the ultimate cover-up. Millions of tons of rubble that could erase almost any evidence. For the few detectives still working these cases, this was a forensic nightmare. How could you possibly tell the difference? Well, pathologists figured out some incredible techniques. And often, the biggest clue was in the victim's lungs. You see, if their windpipe was full of soot and brick dust, it meant they were alive and breathing when the building came down. But if their lungs were clear, it meant they were already dead. This led to what became known as the rubble alibi. It was this simple, powerful assumption that the only real murderer in London was Hitler. So every unidentified body was just another casualty of war. A killer didn't need to cook up a personal alibi because the entire war was their alibi. And some killers were even more methodical, more calculating. They didn't just hide the body. They would deliberately mutilate it to make it look like it had been through a blast. They'd use bricks or hammers to create these awful, crushing wounds, then stage the body in a building that was already damaged and just wait for the next air raid to finish the job. It's a level of cold-blooded planning that is just hard to wrap your head around. But for the really sophisticated killers, just hiding the body wasn't enough. The real goal was to make it seem like their victim had never even existed in the first place. And this number is just staggering. Post-war analysis suggests that as many as 5% of the thousands of unidentified bodies buried in mass graves might not have been victims of the Luftwaffe at all. They were ghosts, murdered and then completely erased by the system. So who were these people? Well, they were the ones who could vanish without anyone noticing. People with no local ties, undocumented refugees fleeing the war in Europe, the homeless. Think about it. They had no family to file a missing persons report. And to make it even easier, incendiary bombs often destroyed town hall records, which means their official existence was literally turned to ash. This created this huge, tragic administrative loophole. With hundreds of thousands of people displaced, someone going missing wasn't automatically a crime. A killer could murder someone and then be the first person to report them missing, using the government's own emergency system to validate their lie. The victim was just stamped presumed dead by enemy action. And just like that, case closed. And this might be the most audacious crime of all. A killer could literally steal someone else's life. They'd find a target, kill them, swap identity papers, and just walk away. To the rest of the world, the killer was now a war hero, dead in an air raid. But in reality, they were alive, living under a new name, their own past completely wiped clean. A person could die in one part of London and be reborn in another, all in a single night.
For years, it really seemed like these perfect crimes would stay buried forever under tons of concrete. But as London began to rebuild itself from the ashes, the city started giving up its darkest secrets.
So that's the real question, isn't it? After all that chaos, after all that clever planning, did any of these killers truly commit the perfect crime and just vanish into history?
Well, the answer turns out to be complicated. Because as the bulldozers rolled in to clear all that wasteland in the late 1940s, they became these accidental forensic tools. The reconstruction of London essentially became the biggest crime scene investigation in the city's history, and it finally started uncovering these rubble ghosts that had been hidden for years. And this wasn't some quick process. For a full decade after the war ended, the rebuilding effort just kept turning up bodies. A skeleton with a bullet hole found in a cellar that had been sealed by debris, another victim discovered with their hands still tied. Every single discovery reopened a cold case from the darkest days of the Blitz.
So, what did we actually learn from all this horror? Well, this dark chapter pretty much forced the birth of modern forensic science. The methods they developed to identify victims in the rubble became the foundation for the disaster victim identification, or DVI, protocols that are used all over the world today after a catastrophe. It also gave us this chilling counter-narrative to the heroic Blitz spirit, sparking the London noir genre and reminding us that even in a city's finest hour, its darkest impulses are never that far from the surface.
Ultimately, the Blitz wasn't one war, it was two. The first one was fought for national survival against an enemy in the sky, but the other was a silent, private war fought in the shadows with knives and bricks in the ruins below. And it's a chilling reminder that sometimes the greatest danger isn't the bomb itself, but the darkness it leaves behind.